Today I'm breaking down this Killua sketch from step by step and showing how I approach the expression, hair structure, and oversized clothing design. The main goal with this sketch was making the silhouette read clearly while keeping the character feeling relaxed and natural. Excuse me. So I always start with the head construction first because that controls the direction uh, and energy of the entire drawing, especially with these upper body drawings. Um, mostly that's what I'm doing, right? Or that's what I was focusing on mostly first when I got back in the drawing recently, and that's just what's usually gonna be what it's usually gonna be unless I can get the feet in there, right? At least in the past few months. Um, I okay, so I always start with the head construction first because it controls the direction and energy of the entire drawing. I begin with a slight skull shape and then add the jaw underneath. For this sketch, I angle the face slightly downwards because it gives Killua a more confident and calm appearance. Even a small tilt changes the entire mood of the character, it's true. Every little thing can change anything, especially head tilt, and especially if you know what their personality is. Next, I place the center line and eye line to keep the proportion stable while drying. Excuse me, while drying. After that, I block in the eyes pretty early because they're the main focus of the character. Killer's expression is subtle, so small changes in the eye shape or eyebrow angle make a huge difference. I keep the nose simple and place the mouth low and relaxed so the face doesn't feel overworked. I said this in a prior there's a prior Killua drawing I did, or maybe I said this in the very very prior drawing. I remember saying this within the drawing video. So within a recent drawing video, I spoke on how I felt as if now what's funny is like when I look closely, like if I don't just glaze over the photo and just look closely at what I'm talking about, it doesn't look bad. But what happens is like I'm still gonna stand on what I said. Like I feel like I could have done better shaping the eyes. I might have drawn them a little bit too wide in this photo. For how his face would be structured in that specific like type of appearance. So if he's looking straight at you like that and his head is tilted exactly the way it is, his eyes usually wouldn't appear like that. Maybe if the camera was looking down on his face or looking up at his face, or maybe the camera was zoomed in and like looking at his face from an angle, maybe that's how his eyes would appear. So I feel like I could have done a better job with that and made the structure or the shape of how his eyes would be more relevant to how it would look in this type of photo. But it is still identifiable as Killua. But that I was saying that that's something that maybe a few days or a few weeks or a few months when I look back, maybe I don't even notice what I was talking about, but I remember that, I was probably being too hard on myself about it. But it's just things that I'm paying attention to that, what can I get better? What looks relevant or not? Also uh, the reference sketch that the reference photo. I'm not even using reference sketches. I'm using reference photos. So I'm looking at an anime photo from like scenery in the show or official artwork or just a picture from somewhere. But it's not a sketch. It's actually a colored in photo, and then I'm actually just sketching it. And I'm not even shading it, but I'm trying to get all the things correct, even though I'm only using lines and I'm not using colors to do what they were doing with the photo. So that's another thing when you're referencing something, like, do you have all the tools that they had, or do you have all the colors they had, or do you have only, like a pen or a pencil and you can choose a shade or not? So when you're uh and it's like you're not tracing, so it's just like, all right, you're obviously not going to get things exact, but like when you're sitting here and drawing something yourself based off of a reference, like what are you taking from when you're looking at the reference, what are you choosing to draw from that, and then how are you choosing to present it, obviously. And do you feel as if you're presenting it the way you would like to present it based on what you're trying to replicate from this reference that you're looking at as you draw? Oh wait, okay. I'm beginning. Okay, let me just read this again. Even if I already did, I begin with a light skull structure and then add the jaw underneath. For this sketch, I angled the face slightly downwards because it gives Killua a more confident and calm appearance. Even small tilt changes the entire movement of the character. I actually did read all of that. Next, I played. Okay, So I scrolled up on the thing that that I wrote up to read from. Next, I move into the hair. Instead of drawing random spikes everywhere, I think about the hair in larger group spike sections first. Is very, very much an anime thing, right? In understanding where they'll be placed, are some longer than others? What is the width and what is the length of the clumps of hair? And based on, like, from the front, like where they usually place, and then from each side where they usually going to be placed. And every character kind of has like a mapped out way of how that would be structured, right? um to where you can identify that that's how their hair usually looks. I build the spikes outwards from the skull shape so the flow feels connected and natural. Excuse me. That helps the silhouette stay readable instead of becoming messy. Once the head is established, I move into oversized jacket design. I focus on the large outer shapes before adding full detail because the silhouette matters mostly early on. And it's an oversized shirt, I should say. Excuse me. The oversized sleeves help exaggerate the proportions and give the drawing more personality. After that, after the main shape works, I start adding folds and smaller details to help the clothing feel layered and believable. Also, the arm that's down by his side, I could have drawn the sleeve slimmer, and what happens is I wanted to draw it close to the body, but the outer end of it I drew a little bit too farther out, and then I didn't really know where I wanted to place where the sleeve, and I'm talking about the it's like, talk about wearing a long sleeve, or I should just say long sleeve, but a long sleeve under a t-shirt, right? um I didn't know where I should place that safely, but I wanted it close to the body. So that sleeve was a bit thicker than I would have maybe intended to actually draw it, but so it just comes out like that, right? Um, at this stage, I mostly focus on readability. I reinforce the eyes and jawline, clean up messy construction lines, and sharpen the outer contour of the drawing. The goal is making the sketch readable immediately, even from far away or at thumbnail size. One thing I wanted to say is that excuse me, I actually so Hunter x Hunter is an anime I have not watched. If anybody would like to in the comments like tell me what it's about. Like I've heard reviews on it. Was very interesting. So I'm very I don't watch anime now. If there's ever times I could, like within the past few months, I'm like rewatching stuff that I actually liked, and then I'm trying to like there's shows that have come out, and I'll try to watch catch up and binge as much as I can if I have some pocket or window of time to do that in between being like busy. But what happens is so this is what there was years that I was this is kind of a segue before I finish explaining this, because what happens is if you guys also want to discuss anime at all, you could feel free to do that. Obviously I talk about art, but if you want to leave comments talking about the actual anime or talking about fun facts about it or joking about it, like I'll joke, like I'll draw a picture about, you know, I'll draw a photo of an anime character, and maybe they're in a specific stance or they're wearing something or their facial expression, like I was talking about in the Sasuke video right before this. And like I'll be aware of something from the show that has some type of relevancy to the photo, so I'll speak about that and talk about the lore and just joke around. But if you want to talk about anything anime wise in the comments, feel free to do that. Or if I make any comments about an anime or a video game character or whatever, because I'm drawing a lot of anime and video game characters or manga characters, if I make any comments, if I say something inaccurate, please feel free to correct me. Feel free to let this be like a channel where you can also just talk about topics of that nature, anything that has to do with like anime characters or manga characters or video game characters or anything that's fictional. Like feel free to talk about that on the channel and discuss it amongst yourselves or discuss it with me if you feel like it, and I'll get back to the comments when I can. And feel like, and what the reason I said this, I was gonna say, feel free to tell me about Hunter x Hunter. I think I mentioned this in a video, or maybe I didn't, because sometimes there's like I try to do as few takes as possible, but there was a video recently that I think I did 2 takes, and then what happens is I try to keep it within the time frame of the video. Excuse me. And sometimes I say a little bit too much and go out of that time frame. And what happens is I think I deleted a video where I mentioned how much I knew about Hunter x Hunter. So from what I know, I know more of the general storyline. I don't know way too much about what happened in any episode or any arc or any phase. I can't like speak on any of that because I don't know it. Like I've heard about like the theories of the show, or like about how the I actually saw a video of someone breaking down energy sources in anime, and they're talking about how this show they use a energy source called Nen. So like if you look at shows like Dragon Ball Z, like they'll talk about Ki, or other shows will talk about Chi, but this show talks about Nen, and they're talking about the whole theory about it, right? But basically anything theory wise or anything storyline wise, or if you want to even just tell me what the story is about, or if I say something inaccurate, please feel free to comment and let me know. And I'd love to engage with you guys and everything. The biggest just to continue, like just the outro of this real quick. Um, um, the biggest thing with sketches like this is getting the larger shapes in silhouette working before worrying about tiny details. Once the structure and expression are solid, the rest becomes much easier to clean up and refine.